Presidential candidate of the African Action Congress, Sowore, on Monday joined Nigerian students in protest at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos. The students, under the aegis of the National Association of Nigerian Students, are protesting the prolonged strike action of the Academic Staff Union of Universities. The students held banners bearing inscriptions such as "No nation can develop without genuine commitment to education," and "If you have money for election forms, you can fund education." Joining us to discuss further is Sowore, who's the African Action Congress presidential candidate. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for bringing me.
I think education is a good place to start.
Yes.
Your manifesto, actually, African Action Congress, says that you will fully enroll primary and secondary school students, all of them,
yes,
in the country. How are you going to do that?
Well, one of the most important things people must understand is that to understand education from the point of ignorance and the cost of both sides.
Okay.
You know, if you don't pay for education, you can imagine what it will cost you if you have an ignorant population. So whatever it will take to enroll those 20 million kids who are out there who are not in school, we will make it happen because we know that we can make it happen. We've done it before. That's how I'm sitting in front of you today.
Okay.
In 1980, a secondary school was brought to my village, Kiribo, in SL, the local government. There used to be 6 people who went to secondary school. The day the school arrived, first we built the school and 150 kids showed up in school the next day.
Okay.
That's how we got our education because the Southwestern government, led by Awolowo then, had introduced free education for all.
Right.
That's how I got to secondary school. And they didn't do that only. They made books available. They made erasers available, mathematical sets, up to a point when we also got several support, including technical education machines that were brought. They were never installed before the military came, kicked everybody out, and returned ignorance to our streets and homes. So I'm just explaining that to you so that you can understand how important this is.
Yeah.
But one of the basic things we want to do is to attach conditional cash transfers to parents for enrolling their kids to school.
Okay.
So that would be how we'll incentivize and encourage parents to make sure that the children go to school.
Right.
But it will also then become a crime if you don't send your children to school.
Right.
Lived in the US for 20 years. If my kids don't go to school for 2 days and there's no explanation, the next person knocking my door is a police officer. They want to see why the kids, and the psychologists around, they want to check whether you've been abusing your kids. So this is how serious countries get to address educational problems.
Okay.
So when you have these policies in place, then you look for the money to make them happen.
Okay, so I'm glad you mentioned that because,
Yeah.
you know, at Awolowo's time, the populations were much smaller, and now we have an estimated 13 to 18 million children out of school. Your manifesto,
20 million,
right, which is as much as the whole state.
Yes.
Your manifesto calls for adequate and sufficient funding. So since you've ended your last point on
Yes.
finding the money, where are you going to get the money?
Well, what we have realized with regards to Nigeria is that Nigeria's problem is never wealth creation from time immemorial.
Yeah.
It has always been wealth distribution.
Okay.
And what Oxfam, the international NGOs, told us that by 2015, 5 Nigerians were richer than half of the population.
Right.
So how did they make it? Because they were getting all the corporate individual welfare trust in their direction. By yesterday, 16 trillion naira is going to go to Dangote and Honeywell, just the 2 of them. The rest of us, nothing for us. ASU is asking for 1.3 trillion naira to be given to them 200 billion per tranche, in tranches.
Tranches, yes. Yeah.
You say you don't have it, but the Account General can take home 150 billion naira stolen from Nigeria without anybody even suspecting that he was stealing until the bubble burst. I am saying that it's a matter of priority. It's also a matter of international policy, that a certain percentage of our budget must be allocated to education.
Right.
Like I keep saying, we might even think that education is not good enough. But look at how the UK, Canada, and US, after COVID, just scooped away 8,000 doctors. Our poorly trained doctors are suddenly useful. Some of the most important or the best technologically advanced health systems in the world. That means there's something we're doing right. and we must expand on that. So the goal is to educate rapidly our population so that we can compete in the future internationally. That will also be a source of economic development because you have an educated populace, they are going to help develop. There's no question about it. That's how India did it. It's the way several other countries that used to be at the same level with us did it. But what we've done over this year is that we've ignored education. We've ignored agreements, we've ignored policies, and we kept turning over the wealth of the country to a few people. And the rest of the money is sent, the rich people and those who are politically connected use the rest of the money to send their children to school abroad. Let me give you an example. To send a child to a school in the UK, you are likely to pay nothing less than 50, in some cases, the big schools, £50,000 per semester. If you convert that to Naira, it could almost build 2 schools in villages and communities around us. So it's to look inward, invest our own wealth on our people in our country, and keep complaining that we don't have money when we know that in some countries around the world, our illicit flow of money, it's the reason why they are thriving. Nigeria's money is partially why Dubai is doing very well, even during the recession, when they had a recession, because we're just shipping money over there. The ones we couldn't ship by banks, they were carrying on airplanes from Lagos here. Everybody knew that if you ask anybody in the DSS, EFCC, they accompany bags of dollars to Dubai. These are things that should make us not keep saying that we don't have money to educate our kids. We do. We're just not spending the money on the people that we should be spending money on. Okay, so if I heard you correctly, as far as the ASU situation, you brought that up now, how much they're looking for. How would you address it? You're saying that clogged revenue leakages and the money is here to be able to solve this ASU deadlock. Yes. Okay, yes. All right. I mean, we don't have any business buying SUVs for the government of Niger Republic. Right. We can spend that on education. Well, and we don't need to give $10 million to Afghanistan. We can spend that on education. Gotcha. Yes. So rechannel those funds. Yes. Oil theft is another big issue that I want to get your thoughts on. You heard, we just had that report on Peter Obi, who said he said it's government is behind it. What's your take on who's behind oil theft, and more importantly, how would you end it as president? He's just discovering now. I investigated and found out how oil theft was happening on Sahara Reporters as far back as 2012. Some of those reports was the reason why some of the people who were arrested in the subsidy section offense were arrested. The people who are stealing oil, crude oil, are people in the Army, Navy, and they have connections all the way to Aso Rock. There are people aiding and abetting oil theft. You see a badge that has capacity to carry even 40,000 barrels of crude oil. It's not going to be some hidden badge. But you heard a few days ago, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, a badge, I don't know the capacity, came to Nigeria, supposedly lifted oil. The Nigerian Navy couldn't catch up with it. And this badge was going at 13 knots, meaning that even a slight speedboat could catch up with it. But they didn't catch it until it got to Equatorial Guinea. What are they trying to tell us? They assisted the vehicle to escape. And when it escaped from Nigeria water, suddenly they said, oh, we just found out it didn't pick any crude. And what I guess happened is that they succeeded in taking the crude out and they siphoned it probably to another barge in foreign waters so that they'll fool the country. Everybody knows, and I think the NNPC chairman, I was the managing director, did say that oil theft of 700,000 barrels per day is something happening at the highest levels, including with NNPC officials. It didn't start happening now. There's a port in the US, I think it's Philadelphia, where they recorded over 62 million barrels of oil came in, but there were no records on the Nigerian side of things, how the money came in. I mean, yes, but on the other side, because it's compulsory. The same thing happened to China. The current GMD of NNPC has been allegedly involved in some huge oil disappearance from Nigeria that ended up in China. I know you don't want to discuss the allegations, but we got to be careful about that. But I'm a presidential candidate, and I hope that I'm president of this country. How would you end it? That's the key thing. The way to end it is to make sure that we find the people directly involved and prosecute them, arrest and prosecute them. And we also must police our waters adequately. But the Navy keeps saying that they have now very sophisticated equipment to track ships leaving the country and coming out.
Yeah.
How is it that they can't track these big thieves that are, stealing crude?
Can't talk about oil without talking about fuel subsidies.
Yes.
That's also estimated 6 trillion naira 2023 that will be expended on that. Budget deficit of about 11 or 12 trillion, so fuel subsidies are almost half of that. This is the key thing here, would you yank it off immediately or remove it in gradual stages? And then how do you account for the impacts on the everyday Nigerian to where if you yank it off, fuel prices skyrocket and that affects inflation and so on?
The only thing that Nigerians have left that they still benefit from the government is gasoline, And when you refine crude, you don't only get gasoline. So people forget that we are no longer subsidizing diesel, for example. Why is it that the money we save from not subsidizing diesel is not impacting on our lives, or that of aviation fuel? Because people keep lying to you because they always have a pressure point to blackmail the public with. I have said it. There is no subsidy going on. We found out in 2012, after occupied Nigeria, that they were importing so-called fuel into the country with badges that sank 20 years before. People were arrested, they were being prosecuted. At the end of the day, today, I don't think any prosecution really worked. Those who got sentenced or indicted at the federal high court got the appeal court to let them go. That's part of the problem.
So would you remove it?
I'm not removing it. But
I'm going to remove subsidies?
No, yes.
Okay.
But I'm going to make sure that refineries work so that we can refine locally. Yes.
Okay.
That is very, very important because without addressing the issue of production of fuel, particularly gasoline, which is what is most important about all this, we are not going to be able to address the issue of oil subsidy. There's no subsidy. We are just subsidizing the thieves who import. Let me tell you, and this was you, I watched you read this or somewhere on Arise, where the customs CG.
Ahmed Ali was challenging the
amount of fuel brought into the country.
Right.
So I am not, if I was the one who said it on your show, people would say maybe Sowore doesn't know what he's saying. He's saying that the NNPC is lying to the Nigerian people that they are importing 60 million liters of.
So the NNPC has said that they are open to an investigation and they are ready to have.
Well, now they are open to the investigation.
But I do want to get this. I want to get this quick point from you. Are you saying, because again, this is another point that's been bandied about, that if we have working refineries here, fuel prices will stay where they are now, even with oil prices in the deregulated market?
I'm aware that the NNPC allocates over 400,000, some reasonable amount. I don't know the exact figures now of local crude to be refined locally. NNPC officials sell them on behalf of Nigeria, supposedly on a daily basis. They have not removed that. So what happens to the one that's going to be refined locally? So there's already an allocation for daily refineries from the NNPC. They are taken out of what is exported on a daily basis. What happened to those ones? And they are sold, they're supposed to be sold at subsidized rate already, or allocated to the refineries for cheaper than what goes to the international market. So we put them into the refineries. We have already made allocation for this, and you can check with the NNPC, you can check with the Nigerian government. But this is being sold also on a daily basis because we don't have refineries. And by the way, these refineries that are not working, 4 of them, we've been paying salaries.
Would you sell them? We're out of time.
I'm not selling refineries. We've sold enough of Nigeria's resources and assets to people who we then subsidize through AMCON. Because when they go and borrow money from bank with the collateral of Nigeria, we still have to take them out of their irresponsible ways through AMCON. I'm not selling any more of Nigeria's assets.
So you keep the refineries, you fix them?
We'll fix them. We can fix the refineries if we don't give the refineries repairs to mechanics.
Sowore, African Action Congress presidential candidate, great having you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for bringing me.